Prioritizing cybersecurity is imperative for small businesses to safeguard their operations and reputation. A successful ransomware attack can result in significant consequences, such as financial losses, service disruptions, and harm to the brand image. Rebuilding customer trust post security breach is challenging and may result in the loss of potential clients. We have with us Sameer Mathur, Managing Partner, SM Consulting. Sameer Mathur has more than 3 decades of experience in similar work functions. Sameer completed his MBA in 1989, post his graduation in science from Hansraj College, Delhi University. Over the last 34 years, Sameer has worked for organizations like NIIT, Wipro, Tata Unisys Limited, and Quantum Net Technologies Limited. He is a certified data protection officer and is also a certified information systems auditor. Sameer is a member of the governing board at the Asia Pacific Institute of Management, New Delhi. He has been an entrepreneur for most of his professional life. He is a level B IPMA, International Project Management Associates, certified senior project director. Welcome to the Do Big podcast, Sameer, and I look forward to an interesting conversation with you on cybersecurity.
Yeah, Shital, thanks for that introduction. Yes, cybersecurity is an area of concern amongst all the MSMEs, and they understand, especially in the last 2 3 years, when the usage of internet has gone up and the usage of online tools like recording tools and also business applications has gone up. The issue of cybersecurity is a big area of concern for most of the MSMEs. The issue today is that the understanding of the threat perception is there, but due to various reasons, which we will discuss in subsequent, the actual implementation or actionable insights are very few. So I think that's a big challenge that SMEs are facing, and we as advocacy champions for this, it's our prime job to inform SMEs of the kind of potential threat, like you mentioned about ransomware. Ransomware is one of the issues which gets highlighted in the media, so people are worried about ransomware, but there are 10 other issues which could happen. So I think it's a very interesting topic, and it is a topic which needs immediate concern of the SME owners. But yes, there's a concern area, but also quite often ignored area.
So, Sameer, typically in your experience, and you worked with so many organizations, can you tell us the kind of threats that SMEs have faced? So, if you could prioritize the threats, that will be great. But if you could at least talk to us about the kind of threats they are facing.
The kind of threat they are facing are, like I said, many in number. But the issue is that most of the threats that are coming, so these are concepts which are not very clear to MSMEs. That's why, like I mentioned, that the actionable actions are not there, which means that the threat is not clear to them. For example, in terms of loss of privacy, in terms of loss of data, in terms of loss of valuable asset. It could be a data asset, it could be other assets also. What will a hacker do to us in terms of if the hacker is actually able to get into my network? We've had experience of large SME manufacturing company owners telling us that how does it matter if a hacker gets into our network? What can they take? If they can take our data, doesn't matter to us. So I think that's where lies the problem. Actual potential loss of data is something that is not clear to most of the SME owners. Now, why I'm mentioning SME owners is that most of the SMEs do not have a very mature IT security teams. So most of the SMEs are still, struggling with their, let's say, ERP implementation or CRM implementation, and security kind of takes a back seat because it is something that is not visible. It doesn't actually hamper your daily operations, and that's why it is often ignored. And that is something that we need to work on.
Okay. So, just out of curiosity, Sameer, can you list some of the cybersecurity issues that SMEs face? So, like we talked about ransomware, what are the others that they face?
So there is hacking going on. There is bot-based ransomware where without clicking any link, one can get into it. There are user account based hacking happening. There is identity theft that's happening. Today, users are actually, the hackers are gaining entry into your system and sitting in the system for months together, just trying to gauge the user behavior and just trying to reach the most potential or the most dangerous victim that they can get hold of. It could be the MD's laptop, it could be the CFO's laptop. So all this user analytic behavior is happening today, as a result of which many people are not aware of lot of illegal activity happening in their network. Actually, there is a data survey conducted by international research firms which says that in any network, before the user realizes that there is a hacker in my network, the average time to find this hacker or just to find, not solve the problem, is about 180 days, which means for 6 months, somebody is sitting in your network and reading your data usage and understanding your user behavior before the user comes to know that there is something wrong with my network. So imagine somebody sitting in your home for 6 months, understanding that what time people go out, what time people go in, what time they are kind of resting, and what is the most vulnerable time for me to attack them. I mean, they have all data with them.
And would this typically happen like, they would come in through email? How would typically a hacker enter a system?
So yes, most of the attacks are happening through email or some kind of endpoints, right? So endpoints, of course, and email is one of the applications which all, because it is widely used, and one tends to log into email from wherever in the country you are in, and obviously there are unsecure network because I'm traveling to a remote area where the network is not so secure. I might try to log in from a network of somebody else's office. I am there, which may not be secure. I mean, you go to cyber cafes. Why should we talk of remote locations? Even in cities, you go to coffee places and you will find them giving you free Wi-Fi because they want you to sit there and use their Wi-Fi and probably have coffee and something to eat. And you will find comment on your Wi-Fi network saying unsecured network, which means that the network is insecure. Still, we tend to log in through them and use all our applications, including banking and WhatsApp and other things. So, like I said, that the number of threats that are amazing, and especially with the growth of the cloud network, things are really getting out of hand. And whatever news we are getting in the media, I strongly feel is only the tip of the iceberg. The problem is much much deeper.
Okay. And like you mentioned, there is growing awareness about cybersecurity among SMEs, but you also mentioned that it is difficult and it's a struggle to get into translate it into actionable insights. Where is the struggle and why is there a struggle on the actionable insights?
So two, 3 points, like I mentioned, that you know the problem, but there are no visible symptoms that my work is going on, my ERP is working, I am able to do data entry in my accounting, I'm able to take out invoices, I'm able to create my balance sheet, I'm able to work on my HRMS, attendance system is working, customer relationship management software, everything is working. Where is the problem? It's not visible, right? Point number one. Point number two, the biggest challenge I feel is the lack of availability of manpower. There are international surveys which says that the demand for security professionals is running into millions within India only. And that's why the government is also trying to initiate this as a concept of raising awareness amongst the users in terms of their understanding of the data, how that data as an asset is something that needs to be taken care of. The government, as for the information of all the listeners, has recently passed bill also called the DPTP Act, which was passed as recently as August of 23, which talks specifically of protection of the personal data of the individual. And you have all these controversies around deep fakes that's happening. And this is actually, like I said, only the tip of the iceberg. So coming back to the example of SME owners, especially in the manufacturing, who are sitting in remote areas, and for them, of course, lack of trained manpower is a big issue. even if they were to realize that we need to invest in cybersecurity products, where do they have people to be able to manage those products that they will buy? That's why we have offerings on SaaS platforms, we have offering on cloud where you need not manage. You just install the systems and the management is done by the concerned company at the back end. So those kind of offerings are something that are already picking up. The other thing is that even if the intent is there and even if the teams are there, the lack of awareness amongst the users, which means that if I were to install the best systems in my organization and I would buy the state of the art equipment, but if my users are not aware of how to use IT systems and where all to take the right precautions, I can still be hacked. But somebody could, press on a link and everything goes haywire. So it's a mixture of these three, four parameters which have to be taken care of.
So a lot of people talk about the fact that, SMB should consider implementing a cyber risk quantification solution, which really is getting an understanding of their cybersecurity, posture and and helps them make informed decisions. Just talk us through a little more about what this could mean for an SMB. What does, cyber risk quantification mean?
Both in terms of risk management, both the quality of the risk and the quantity of the risk are very, very important. Unfortunately, this is a concept which is just taking off in the SME sector. Not many people were aware of this, and this is a service which does cost a lot of amount, and it's rather a costly service from SME point of view. But there are now online tools available which will do it for you on a SaaS model, which means you need not employ people full time in your office. The biggest threat actually comes from the vendors, which means if you are connected to your vendors, which most of the SMEs are, and vendors are still smaller companies, they might be the M out of the MSME, and of course for them cybersecurity is not a big concern. Neither do they have budgets nor do they have awareness for this. And once your system is connected to your vendor system, then that's the biggest risk, which means the hackers can get it through the vendors network. We have this concept of TPRM, the third party risk management tools, which I think are very good. They are coming up. In terms of the actual quantification and the quality of risk, like I mentioned, there is the concept of a PI index, which means the probability of risk and the impact of risk. Sometimes the probability of risk is high, but the impact is low. So I might kind of ignore that because everything turns into commercial angle. But if the probability is low and the impact is high, and moment the impact of the risk happening is high, which means that somebody can actually take control of my IT systems and can stop my billing, like it has happened in a very large hospital and other places also. They can actually take over your systems and not let you work. And then we have those ransomwares and the cryptocurrency being paid and all that. So the issue of awareness, the issue of actually going through the whole process, creating, like you said, a risk management quantification chart matrix, using the PI index, yes, is a very good solution for these SMEs to at least understand their risks.
So, Sameer, when you talked about this whole thing of a hospital and the billing process stop, it almost seemed like an OTT episode to me. And I was just thinking, maybe can you share, and we don't expect you to share clients, but can you share one or two examples of what has happened when an SMB has faced a cybersecurity issue? So, what kind of an attack happened? What kind of a threat happened? And how do you mitigate?
I can give you many, many examples. For example, one manufacturing company that we were advising on their cybersecurity posture, based out of Punjab, large company, couple of $100 million. And one fine morning, a lot of their vendors started getting mails from their system saying that because you have not paid your amounts for the last transaction, we are stopping your payment or something like that. So as a result, there was panic in the. I mean, they have a very large channel network all over the country and outside India also. And so this was a typical attack instigated by malicious actors. The idea was to create panic, and then based on that, people will panic, take some wrong action, and then they will take control. So this was just, I would say, teaser given to the management that either hear us, or pay our ransom what they are asking for. And there was panic all over the partner network that what is this happening? And it was basically a spam. They didn't have a proper anti-spam software. So one of the out of the thousands of users that they have, probably 1500 or 1600 users, one user was attacked, and from this user, hundreds of mails went early in the morning before even the office opened. So all their vendors and dealers and customers, large customers, also got mails that we are stopping your payment. And there are always a lot of panic and stuff because these are our core products. And at the user end, at the customer end, work would have stopped had they stopped the deliveries. So like this, there are many examples. We have examples of personal data being misused within the organization. One very important part is, Sheetal, that most of the leakages happen from internal resources only. This is also a survey that has been done, that it is done by existing or ex employees only. So which becomes, of course, becomes an HR issue, that why are our employees only turning against us, because there are n number of reasons. But yes, in another customer there was a case of somebody using Facebook Live to give out wrong data or a wrong message. There are so many examples where in the last year or so, since the press has got hold of this news, that the large companies have been targeted, and it becomes very difficult for them to come back into business. And we have the example of Maggie being targeted. We have the example of large delivery apps, food delivery apps being targeted. We have examples of pathological labs being targeted, which are carrying medical data. I mean, that's the most sensitive data that can carry, that can happen, that can be leaked. So the examples are numerous.
Okay, so that's interesting. So, on one side, we have cybersecurity, which is becoming a growing problem. And while you've spoken about the large organizations, what you're really saying is that SMBs are soon going to be the next target of these hackers and these phishers and things like that. Because there are only so many large companies, but there's a much larger pool of MSMEs available to them. Switching gears a bit, one aspect which is also very large as far as cybersecurity is concerned is also data privacy. And I just wanted to understand that, what is happening in the space of data privacy and why is it that SMEs need to start focusing on data privacy? Because I think all of us have not really, as SMEs or MSMEs, not really focused on data privacy in the past. Globally, there's a lot of conversations around data privacy and personal data privacy and consumers' data and things like that. But in India, it's becoming a conversation today. So, what is it that is happening in the environment which SMEs must take notice of?
Absolutely, Sheetal. So the concept of personal privacy has been discussed in India also over the last 10, 15, 20 years. The first version of this bill that I mentioned was introduced almost 18, 20 years back, but it was largely ignored by the concerned authorities and by the people also, because there was no clarity on what personal privacy is all about. Forget data privacy. Supreme Court, in one of their judgments few years back, clarified that right to privacy is a basic right as defined in the Constitution. And that was a time when people woke up that this is a very important topic to be taken care of. Now, this was personal privacy, that privacy, every individual of the country, every citizen of the country, minor, major, adult, old, the right to privacy is a basic right. So this was a ruling given by Supreme Court few years back, and that's why, like I said, the system started moving. And then we introduced a bill on this, and there was a lot of discussions there. Coming back to the point, see, personal privacy is something that is still not understood, and it's a very abstract topic, frankly. You go to a showroom today and they say, please share your number, Sheetal Bam. We'll send you some discount coupons, and you don't feel like giving your number, you don't give your number. Tomorrow, after a week, you go to another outlet. who's also unknown to you, like this outlet, they say, if you can give your number, we'll then you give your number. So it's not that you are not concerned about privacy, but maybe you were in a better mood and you like the person, and then you shared your number. So I'm saying that this is one. The secondly, we have this concept, especially in metros, of people putting cameras on their main gate or main door, and which is covering the road also, which is covering the neighbor's house also, probably. So all these are invasions of privacy. So one has to understand that before data privacy, we need to understand privacy. It's a long topic, but let me come to personal data privacy. The law is very clear that personal data is something. There is a term in the act called PII, personally identifiable information. Whichever information, whichever data can be connected back to me, which could be my name, Sameer Mathur, which could be my number, which could be my mail ID, which could be my medical data, which could be my financial data. That's all PII. Now that needs to be protected. Coming back to SME owners need to make sure that all personal data of individuals that they are carrying is properly protected, which means there is no breach. This is one of the very few laws in India, Sheetal, where the Act has defined the penalties inside the Act, which means it's printed. And the penalties start from 10 crore and goes till 250 crores for large organizations, and applicable to all companies which are doing business in India. It's only digital weight data. If you are copying your data on a piece of diary or register, that's not covered. But the moment you are copying that data from your register to your Excel sheet, that becomes digital data. We have visitors logbook in so many government offices where they write your number, name, everything, and then if they are converting it into an Excel sheet, then it comes as part of the digital data. So the law says that at any cost, you have to ensure that this does not get leaked. The personal data. This is not about ERP data. This is not about financial data. The personal data. And in case there is a breach, there are huge penalties, like I said, going up to 250 crores. Coming back to your point of MSMEs, MSMEs are actually at a bigger threat of being hacked because the level of cybersecurity there is pretty low, like we have discussed, right? So the MSME owners, especially the ones who are carrying crucial data, carrying personal data, sensitive data, need to immediately start looking at this as a concern area. There is an option of conducting what is known as a harm audit. Harm audit is a concept, Chital, where we conduct an audit to actually quantify what harm will come to the customer in case of a data breach of personal data, right? So these are all advanced concepts, but my request to my I'll urge all SME owners to look into this as something which is not from the compliance point of view, not from the penalty point of view, from the point of view of the fact that it can really spoil the life of an individual if the personal data is misused after hacking from your organization.
Samir, are there categories or, are there industries where you think that this could be more damaging than others? So let's say, for example, do you think healthcare data versus, just basic mobile phone data? I'm just trying to understand, is there like a industries which are more, which could have far more serious repercussions over industries which may not have as much serious repercussions?
See, obviously, the first industry that comes to mind is BFSI, the banking, finance, insurance kind of sector. That's come. Healthcare is, of course, one. But even services industry, manufacturing industry, whoever is carrying personal data, which all of us are, employee data, our vendor data, our customer data. There are, for example, the food delivery apps, ticket booking apps, movie hall booking apps. They're all carrying our personal data, right? Our banking apps are carrying our personal data. Could be financial, could be medical data. I would not prioritize, but yes, in terms of compliance, I think BFSI industry is something which has taken the lead in terms of using this as a tool or understanding the ramifications of this act if they were not to take care of the breach.
A lot of SMEs or MSMEs are also partners to much larger organizations, which could be both national in nature and global in nature. How should MSMEs who are working with global organizations or large national organizations. Why does this whole security and privacy become even more critical for them?
It's a very good question, Sheetal. We have had customers with us where their foreign partners or even customers, they could be buying or selling to them. They have stopped doing business or reduced the business because of lack of security posture in the MSME. Remember, we had that movement of textile industry and garment industry suffering by saying that if you are using child labor in your company, we will not buy from you. And if you go to any large industrial area where garment manufacturing is happening, you will find large posters saying that in our manufacturing unit, no child labor is being used, because that came as a pressure from the customers in Europe and US. In this case, the ramifications are much higher, especially with the introduction of GDPR, which happened few years back. Most of the America also has a law called CCPA. So does Australia and Singapore and Dubai. All the developed nations have laws, very strict laws regarding this. You'll be surprised to know more than 125, 126 countries in the world have personal data privacy laws. It does happen that they need to abide by those laws, whether you are buying from a OEM outside India or selling to them. Yes, this is a major area of concern, and especially let's consider, for example, GDPR. Now, GDPR, if you are carrying any data of a European citizen in your company through whatever means, if you are serving a European company, you are a back-end data center or you are a back-end service provider to them, and as a result, you are carrying any personal data of any European citizen, EU citizen, then you are bound by GDPR laws. Like I said, it's a very vast topic, and one needs to be aware. So I would say that there's no need to panic on this. It's not that it's going to come to all of us, but I think one of the biggest movement that is happening also, that the users, especially the young users, the Gen X and the Gen Z are already aware of this because of their presence on social media, and they would feel much more comfortable in working in a company where they feel that my personal data here is properly protected.
Typically, when you think about SMEs and the way they handle cybersecurity, they have things like firewalls or email security, the basic steps in place. Most of them. And like you mentioned, doing advanced things cost money. And therefore, if I can manage with the basics, is how a lot of MSMEs look at security. Chal jayega. I should be able to manage it. If you had to advise them, and I'm just saying maybe two or three steps that you can tell SMEs that they must take so that they enhance their cybersecurity measures beyond just the absolute basics, what would those two or three steps be?
Very good point you have raised, Sheetal. So let me give you an example on this. You mentioned about firewalls and endpoint securities and email securities and stuff like that. So most of the MSMEs that we work with, even if they have these devices or solutions installed there, they're not aware of it. I mean, it's they bought it and they installed it, and after that, nothing's happened. For example, let's take a firewall only. Now, firewall is an authentication device. Firewall is like a guard standing in front of your building or in front of a network in case of a firewall, and he is just authenticating that the person who is coming inside is either an employee of the company or he's a visitor, but whom he is going to meet, the visitor is kind of confirming his identity. That Mr. XYZ has come, he's not an employee of the company, but please let him come because he has come to meet me. Authenticating the user is what the firewall does. I might be an authenticated user to your factory, but I might be carrying pen drive with me in my pocket, which I can go and install or steal data from your organization. The firewall is not carrying the content of the person who's coming, is not checking the content. Means I could be a ransomware bot. I could go and sit inside, hide. I'll say, where is the washroom? Where is the coffee? There and there. I go and hide in the building somewhere. Nobody's bothered that you came and you never went out. How it starts. So I'm saying updating the existing product policies is something that is of area of concern. As far as I am concerned, the first thing we check is our policies, existing email security policies, existing firewall policies. We find that The firewall policies, if they bought the firewall 8 years back, firewall policies was discussed by the concerned vendor. They were told to the vendor, vendor installed, implemented the policy, walked off. After that, nobody has bothered to open that and see whether there are changes to be done. It all comes back to how much mind share you are giving to this as a problem, how much awareness you have that this is an issue which ideally firewall policy should be checked every quarter, if not every month. But I know customers who have not looked at their firewall policy for 5 years, which means so many new things would have happened, but you are just, it's a tick mark on your KRA that yes, I bought a firewall, it's running, and that's it. These measures, before we, whatever is there, we find a lot of gaps there. There is no risk management in place. Third party risk management is not even discussed in MSMEs. I think these are all concern areas which they need to take care of.
And before we wrap up, my last question to you. So let's say I'm an MSME or our listeners are MSMEs, and can you kind of list 5 factors that especially SMEs should look into when they're looking at a cybersecurity solution to ensure that it is effective? So you could give me 3 factors or 5 factors, but the top 5 factors that they should look for in a cybersecurity solution.
I think the first factor is management or leadership buy in. I always say that you can't run your factory without a fire alarm system. The authorities will not give you permission to run your factory without a fire alarm. But how come you are getting a permission to run your network system without any security? So, like you insist that I want a fire alarm, I want the AC in my factory. Similarly, please consider cybersecurity as a basic step. So, like I said, that first is look at the policies being implemented for whatever you already have. Like I gave an example of firewall. So look at updating your products to the latest offering from the concerned vendors, understanding the policies, actually implementing policies. Management has to understand that the policies are for your own good. Please don't ignore the policies. Second is that you have to run awareness program amongst all your staff. The awareness programs, when we talk of running awareness programs, the IT teams are put in front, saying that IT को सिखा दिया तो सब सीख जाएंगे. That's not right. IT is only an implementer. If your HR fellows, accounts fellows, sales fellow, marketing teams, the guard, and all that, who are also part of the same network, IT network, if they are not following those norms, then the whole, you might have the best of the tools, it's not going to happen. So awareness programs, management buy-in, and then comes the actual products to be bought. You might spend a crore of rupee on buying the best product, but leakages will happen if those two are not followed. And most of the IT heads tell us that the flouting of the norms are happening from the top level, which is where the gap is. Then you come to actual products, and I think the actual products one should look at buying something which is the state of the art, which is proactive. Most of the people end up buying a firewall, which is a reactive product, which means that after the incident has happened, after hacking has happened, it will let you know. Email security, if you are not able to, basic email securities or endpoint securities or firewalls are not going to stop the new hackers. The hackers are much, much smarter than we are. So it's not going to stop. So we need to get into the mind of the hacker and decide what is he thinking about. So hacking are two kinds. One is for money, other is for spoiling your reputation. Two kind of hacking. So we need to be clear on what kind of devices we should buy. We should buy products which stop hackers from coming. Not only reporting that what has happened already. So instead of post incidents, we need to buy. There are many AI based analytical tools which are available. Not very costly. AI doesn't mean very high cost. Very reasonably priced tools which are available in the market. Which basically you mentioned about risk management. It prioritizes your risk. There are 25 risks in your network. Out of these 25, these five are the highest impact. The tool will do for you, and then you need to create a strategy to mitigate those five risks. So this, if you are an SME which is looking at forward looking, and you are looking at something, not only reporting what hacker having got in, stopping the hacker from coming in, then you need to go the AI analytical tool way.
Great. That, Sameer, brings us to the end of today's episode. I'm sure that we all learned a lot from you. And yes, it's very interesting that when you talk about the fact that first you have to check your own readiness before you start implementation. And I think that's something that most MSMEs need to get their mindsets to shift into saying this is a potential threat which could happen to my brand. And therefore, I need to invest in this just like I invest in manufacturing, just as I invest in brand building and everything else. Thank you so much for your valuable time. And thank you so much for making this complex subject a little more easy to understand during our conversation. So, an absolute pleasure having you on the Do Big podcast.
Thank you, Shito. Thank you. Same here, same here, same here.
And wonderful chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shito.
Thank you for tuning in to the Do Big podcast, a podcast that is dedicated to providing insights, strategies, and success stories of smart digital solutions for SMEs. We believe that behind every successful business, there's a strong foundation of reliable and secure technology, be it digital connectivity, cloud infra, cloud apps, collaboration tools, or cybersecurity solutions. In a rapidly evolving digital world where technology is key to progress, Tata Tele Business Services stands at the forefront of digital transformation of SMEs. Tata Tele Business Services, with their extensive experience and commitment to empowering businesses, understands the unique needs of SMEs. Tata Tele Business Services, with their extensive experience and commitment to empowering businesses, understands the unique needs of SMEs. Whether it's scalable connectivity, robust communication tools, or tailored ICT solutions, Tata Tele Business Services is here to propel your business forward. Tata Tele Business Services is synonymous with innovation, reliability, and transformative solutions. With a legacy spanning decades, Tata Tele Business Services has been empowering businesses and transforming lives across the nation. So, if you're ready to take your organization to new heights of success, we encourage you to explore the transformative possibilities that Tata Tele Business Services has to offer. Our contact details are in the description below. Remember, we're available on major podcast platforms. So if you enjoyed today's conversation, subscribe to our podcast for future episodes, which we promise will be packed with equally valuable insights on questions entrepreneurs face as they digitize and scale businesses with the help of technology. Don't forget to rate and review our podcast, as well as share it with peers, colleagues, and other entrepreneurs like yourself who will benefit from listening to it. Thank you for listening to us, and until the next time, keep embracing technology and may your business thrive in the digital era.